Have you ever found yourself just going along with the crowd, even when your gut is screaming, this is a bad idea? Or have you ever noticed how a uniform, a simple piece of clothing, can completely change the way we act around someone? Well, today, we're going to pry open the hood and look at the hidden obedience switch inside all of our minds. And I gotta tell you, what you're about to find out might just change how you see, well, everything. So let's start with a big one. Are your choices really your own? I mean, we all love to think we're in the driver's seat, right? That we're making these rational, independent decisions every single day. But what if I told you that a huge chunk of your behavior is being guided by these powerful, totally unconscious programs that you're not even aware are running? Stanley Milgram, who was a real pioneer in this stuff, absolutely nailed it with this quote. It all comes down to how we interpret the world. Who's in charge? What's normal behavior here? What's the safe thing to do? The person who controls that interpretation, well, they've got a shortcut to controlling your behavior, often without you ever realizing it. Now, to really get this, we have to rewind the clock, way, way back. You see, our brains are basically running on super old software. For our tribal ancestors, listening to the leader wasn't about being weak. No way. It was about staying alive. If you disobeyed, you could get kicked out of the tribe, and that was a death sentence. So that instinct, that deep urge to follow a clear authority, it's not a bug, it's a feature that's been hardwired into us for survival. Okay, so how does this ancient tribal program actually work in our modern world? Well, it all starts with this really cool and kind of weird idea. The idea that we're all deeply and unconsciously vibrating on the same frequency as the people around us. And there's a name for this. It's called social coherence. Think of it like this. Our bodies and our minds are constantly, and I mean constantly, tuning into the non-verbal signals that everyone else is broadcasting. We're picking up on their emotions, their posture, their everything, and it creates this kind of group harmony, or sometimes disharmony. And this piano metaphor just illustrates it perfectly. Imagine you've got a room full of pianos. You walk up to one and you hit a single key, let's say middle C. You know what happens? The C string on every single other piano in that room starts to vibrate. Just a little bit, in sympathy. They can't help it. They're tuned to resonate with that specific frequency. We are those pianos. And here's the kicker. This means your internal state is not a private matter. Your confidence, your anxiety, your fear, you're broadcasting it like a radio tower 24/7. And the people around you, they're picking it up. They are resonating with it, and it's happening completely outside of their conscious awareness. It's an invisible, powerful form of communication. So we've got the theory down, this idea of us all vibrating together. But let's see how this thing plays out in the real world. Because we're about to see this obedience program in action. And honestly, the results are startling. All right, first up, a classic experiment. Researchers put people in a waiting room, one at a time, and asked them to fill out some forms. Pretty normal stuff. But then, smoke starts pouring into the room from a vent in the wall. The big question was, what would people do? The results were just mind-blowing. When a person was alone in the room, 3/4 of them, 75%, got up and reported the smoke right away. Makes sense, right? But when they put that person in a room with a bunch of actors who were told to just ignore the smoke, only 10%, 10%, said anything. The other 90% just sat there, looking at the smoke, looking at the comm group, and decided to trust the group's inaction over their own senses. Okay, let's look at another one. In this experiment, researchers had a guy stand at a crosswalk, and when the signal said don't walk, he'd step out and jaywalk anyway. They just wanted to see how many people would follow him into traffic. But they changed one key thing, what he was wearing. Get this, 350% more people followed the guy and broke the law when he was wearing a business suit compared to when he was wearing just regular street clothes. A 350% increase. That is the raw power of a uniform. It's an instant authority symbol that our brain just goes, yep, he knows what he's doing, and flips that obedience switch. And finally, we have the ASH test. This one's a real head-scratcher. You put one real participant in a room with a group of actors. You show them all a card with a line on it, and then another card with 3 lines. The task is super easy. Just say which of the 3 lines matches the first one. It's obvious. But then, one by one, the actors all start giving the same, clearly wrong answer. So why on earth would anybody go along with something that their own eyes are telling them is wrong? Well, it boils down to two incredibly powerful forces. First, there's normative influence. That's our deep, primal fear of being the weirdo, the outcast. And second, there's informational influence. That's the little voice in your head that says, if everyone else is saying that's the answer, they must see something I don't. And the results are just staggering. 75%. 3/4 of all participants went against the evidence of their own senses and conformed to the group's wrong answer at least one time. Think about that. Most of us are literally wired to trust the group more than our own perception of reality. So we've seen what happens. We conform, we obey, we follow the person in the suit. But why? What are the specific signals our brain is looking for that scream, hey, pay attention, this person is in charge? The best way to think about it is like you have an authority radar that's always running in the background. It's constantly scanning, evaluating, and ranking every single person you meet. And it's looking for a very specific checklist of cues. And here they are. These are the 5 tripwires. These are the signals that your authority radar is searching for. When enough of these get triggered, your brain just defaults to obedience mode. So let's just break it down real quick. Movement. Are they purposeful and deliberate, or are they hesitant? Appearance. What does it signal? A uniform, status symbols, good grooming. Confidence. Do they act and speak with total certainty? Connection. Do they make you feel like you have their undivided attention? And finally, the big one, internal feeling. Does it all add up? Is this person congruent, or does something just feel off? If those first few boxes get checked and nothing feels off, our brain's default setting is follow. Now, hearing all of this, you might start to feel a little powerless, like we're all just puppets. But it's actually the exact opposite. Because once you can see the machinery, once you understand how it works, that's when you can decide when to let it run and when to grab the controls yourself. And this isn't just an academic exercise. This has real life or death consequences. In a tragic fire at a Woolworth store, 10 people died in the building's restaurant. And do you know why? Because in the middle of all that chaos, their brains defaulted to the restaurant script. You finish your meal, you wait for the check, and you pay. They literally waited to pay their bills as the room was filling with deadly smoke. That's how dangerous it can be to run on autopilot. So here it is. Here's the most important takeaway from all of this. Just by learning about these programs, about social coherence, about the authority tripwires, about these mental scripts, you have already taken the single most critical step. Awareness is the kill switch. It gives you that precious moment to pause, to think, and to choose whether to follow or to take control. And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. You now have a glimpse behind the curtain. You can see some of the invisible strings that guide so much of what we all do. You can see how they work. So the only question left is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? Now that you can see the strings, who's really in control?